Let me say something that usually shocks people the first time they hear it. Most webinars don't fail because they lack value. They fail because they deliver value in the wrong way, at the wrong time, to the wrong psychological state. And that's why value packed webinars often convert worse than simpler ones. Not sometimes, often. Now, here's the belief almost everyone has: if I give more value, people will trust me more. If they trust me more, they will buy. It sounds logical, isn't it? It feels ethical, it feels generous, right? And it's also one of the most expensive misunderstandings in webinars, because value does not automatically create readiness, and trust does not automatically create action. In fact, in many webinars, more value creates more hesitation. This belief comes from content marketing. In content marketing, value works. You give, you educate, you build goodwill over time. But a webinar is not content marketing. A webinar is a decision environment. That distinction is crucial, and it's one most people miss. When you treat a decision environment like a classroom, you confuse your role. You're not there to impress, you are there to resolve. Imagine you're buying a house. You sit down with an agent, and instead of helping you decide, they start teaching you everything they know about construction materials, zoning laws, interest rate history, architectural styles, all sorts of other things. 2 hours later, you know more about houses than you ever wanted to. Do you feel safer? You feel overwhelmed, because the question you needed answered wasn't, how much does this person know? It was, is this the right decision for me to buy the house? Most value packed webinars do the same thing. They educate people past the point of confidence. Now, value does one of two things in a webinar: it either reduces uncertainty or increases complexity. If your value reduces uncertainty, it helps. If it reduces complexity, it hurts. Most webinars don't distinguish between the two. They stack insight after insight, framework after framework, tip after tip, without asking the most important question: what uncertainty is this resolving? So the attendee leaves thinking, this was great, but I need to think about it. And I need to think about it is not neutral, it's a failed outcome. A very common webinar scenario is the following. I see this constantly. A presenter teaches, right? 7 steps, 5 steps, 3 frameworks, 2 case studies. The audience is engaged, chat is active, people take notes, and at the end, when the presenter goes, any questions? Silence. Then the pitch comes. Conversations are extremely low or don't even happen. And the presenter is confused. They say, but I gave them so much value. Yes, you did. That's the problem. You turned the webinar into a research project, not a decision pathway. So why more value feels like the right move? Giving more value feels safe. It feels like I've earned the right to sell, right? We've all been there. But the buyers don't buy because you've earned it. They buy because the risk feels contained. And value does not automatically reduce risk. Sometimes it does the opposite. The more options people see, the harder it becomes to commit. And here's a subtle but important distinction. There are 2 types of value: expansive value, which opens new ideas, adds possibilities, increases awareness. And then there's constructive value that narrows choices, removes doubt, simplifies decision. Most webinars deliver expansive value. High converting webinars deliver constructive value. They don't teach everything, they teach what matters for this decision. So, why people say this was amazing and they still don't buy? Now, this part is important. Compliments usually mean you taught me something, purchases mean you helped me decide. So those are not the same skill. When people praise a webinar but don't buy, it's often because they learned but didn't feel safer. Think about a doctor. You walk in with a problem and the doctor explains every possible diagnosis, every rare condition, every academic nuance. You wouldn't feel reassured, right? You'd feel anxious or even more anxious than you were before. A good doctor doesn't overwhelm, they narrow. They say, based on what I see, it's likely this. Here's why. Here's what we'll do. Now that's value, but it's selective value. Most webinar presenters act like professors. High converting ones act like the doctor who just gave you a diagnosis. So the core lesson and your takeaway is this: value is not about how much you give. It's about what uncertainty you remove. If a section of your webinar doesn't clarify, narrow, or stabilize, it doesn't belong there. This is why simpler webinars often outperform complex ones. Not because the presenter knows less, but because they know what not to say. Once you understand this, a lot snaps into place. You'll understand why long webinars fail, why engagement can mislead, why better slides don't help, Why follow-up emails can't save weak structure, because all of those are downstream of one mistake: confusing education with decision support. Now, here's a final thought. I'll let you go with this. If your webinar isn't converting, don't ask, how can I add more value? Just simply ask, what uncertainty am I still leaving unresolved? That question alone will change how you build webinars.